I truly believe that creativity thrives in these quiet moments of reflection, don't you think?
His breath landed on the back of my neck before his hands did. One hand braced the wall beside me, the other slid up my hip, slow and certain. And when I arched back into him, I didn't flinch. I didn't say no. I let him press all the way in, silently, completely, like I'd already broken something hours ago and had no intention of picking up the pieces. The hallway floor was cold beneath my bare feet, but everything else burned. My fingers clenched the dryer handle, that warmth metal grip grounding me, while the quiet hum of the machine spun endlessly behind me. The only sound brave enough to fill the silence we created. His weight pressed into me from behind, timid but hungry, and I could hear his breath shift every time I tightened. And I kept tightening as though my body could trap the moment and never let it leave. I didn't understand what was happening, at first, not truly. I'd spent so many nights pretending I was content folding socks, checking lunch boxes, setting alarms. I used to believe boundaries were unmovable lines, solid things we either respected or we didn't. But that's the lie we tell ourselves to feel safe. Real boundaries are blurry in the dark. They waver when someone looks at you like you're still alive beneath the laundry piles and grocery list and routines that eat away at who you used to be. He was younger, not drastically, but just enough for me to pretend it didn't matter, just enough for me to lie to myself and say it was harmless, just enough to excuse the way my eyes lingered a second too long when he laughed, or the way my pulse shifted when his arm brushed mine in the kitchen. He wasn't a stranger. He was family. Sort of. My husband's cousin. His kid cousin, even though he was nearly 30, and no one called him a kid when he carried heavy boxes up our stairs or helped with the gutters after a storm. He stayed with us sometimes on weekends when he was in town for work, slept in the guest room, ate dinner with us like family, kept out of the way like a ghost, but I saw the way he looked at me, and worse, I saw the way I looked back. It didn't begin in that hallway. That was just the first time we let it exist. It started long before. The first time I wore a tank top without a bra, thinking no one would notice. The first time he said, "You look really nice today." And I couldn't tell if he meant it like a compliment or a confession. And instead of pushing it away, I carried it like a secret in my pocket. I was 41, married, 2 kids, and a man who still showed up, still paid bills, still came home every night. But he hadn't touched me in weeks, maybe months, and I stopped keeping track because I thought it would hurt less if I didn't count the days. I wasn't unloved. I was unnoticed. There's a difference, but one that cuts just as deep. I wasn't looking to cheat. I wasn't searching for someone new. I was searching for something that used to be mine. A version of me that hadn't vanished beneath motherhood and marriage and making do. When Adam looked at me, I didn't feel tired. I didn't feel invisible. I felt remembered, like someone was holding a mirror up to parts of me I thought I'd buried years ago. That night in the hallway, it wasn't planned. It wasn't a build-up. There were no stolen glances or nervous smiles right before. Just quiet. Just proximity, just the hum of the dryer and the sound of his breath behind me. I didn't even hear him walk up. One second, I was standing there folding shirts I'd already folded. The next, I felt him, warm, solid, close. His hand hovered above my hip for a moment, like he was asking without words, and I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. I didn't move away. I leaned back ever so slightly, and that was enough. I told myself it was a mistake, that I'd regret it the moment it was over, that guilt would flood in and drown me whole. But when it ended, and I straightened my shirt and walked away, the only thing I felt was quiet. Not peace, not shame, just a silence that echoed inside me louder than any apology ever could. He didn't speak. He didn't chase me down the hallway or ask if I was okay. He just stood there, still, like a statue built from all the things we weren't supposed to say. The next morning, I made coffee like always, measured out the scoops, stirred the sugar, waited for a shift that never came. My husband scrolled through his tablet, same posture, same size between headlines, same casual silence like everything was normal. Because for him, it was. I was still the woman who filled his prescription and bought the almond creamer he liked. Still the woman who remembered his mother's birthday and reminded him to call. Still the woman who hadn't initiated anything physical in almost a year. And he never asked why. But for me, everything was different. The hallway burned in my memory, like a scene from a movie I didn't mean to audition for. The breath on my neck, the weight of hands that hadn't held me before, but felt like they'd been waiting to. It played on loop in the back of my mind. I wanted to rewind, not to undo, but to relive. And that terrified me, because the truth was that I hadn't made a mistake. The truth was that I had wanted it. I'd chosen it. And once you admit to that kind of want, it doesn't let go easily. The smell of fabric softener always reminded me of control, of routine, of safety, of the endless rhythm of domestic life. But that morning, as I stood in the laundry room pretending to fold towels that didn't need folding, I realized I was using it like a shield. The scent wrapped around me like armor, but it couldn't quiet the heat still pulsing between my ribs. It had been one night, one moment, and yet I kept seeing the dryer door, the faint flicker of light against metal, the way my legs had trembled afterward, and how I hadn't looked back, but he had. I could feel it in the air behind me even now, that silent waiting, that charged stillness. My husband left for work at 8:17. Same as always, kissed the top of my head like he had every day for 12 years. Same words, be back by 6, same keys and the same bowl. The front door clicked shut. I didn't move until I heard the car pull out of the driveway. Then I turned and looked down the hallway. The guest room door was cracked, just slightly. Not enough to be open, but enough to make me know he was awake. Enough to make me wonder if he was waiting. I didn't walk toward it, but I didn't walk away either. I stood there with my hand still on the countertop, pretending to clean a spot that didn't exist, pretending I hadn't just waited for that exact sound, the engine fading into the morning quiet, to feel like I could breathe again. The day dragged by in fragments, coffee, dishes, phone calls, errands, but I couldn't shake the memory, not the act itself, though that haunted me in its own way, but the way I had felt when it happened, like I was finally being seen, like I had stepped out of my skin and back into the version of myself I'd buried beneath duty and schedules. And that scared me more than anything, because it wasn't about Adam, not really. It was about what I became when he looked at me like that. That afternoon, I offered to drive and pick up groceries. It was nothing unusual. I often ran errands alone while my husband worked and the kids were at school. But this time, Adam offered to come with me, just to help with the bags, he said, just to make it easier on my back. I told myself it was practical, harmless, efficient. And maybe, if I just said no, maybe everything would have stopped there. But I didn't. I said, sure. And he grabbed his jacket without another word. We didn't talk much in the car, just a few jokes about traffic, something about the weather, normal things. But the silence between those normal things was thicker than it should have been. It sat between us like a held breath. I parked under the tree near the edge of the store lot, reached for my purse, and tried to ignore the way my hand shook slightly. When I turned the key to shut the car off, nothing happened. I frowned, turned it again. Nothing. I must have left the lights on, I said, not really to him, more to the air. The battery had drained. I didn't reach for my phone, I didn't ask for help, and he didn't suggest it either. He just sat there, quiet, watching the windshield. Raindrops began to gather on the glass, soft at first, then heavier, tiny rivers slicing through the fog. I kept staring at them, trying to let them distract me, to pull me back into something simple and still. But then he spoke. I didn't sleep last night. I didn't look at him, just listened. His voice was low, almost hesitant, like he wasn't sure if he should say more. I kept thinking you'd come back, he added. That was the first time I felt the breath catch in my throat, a sudden tightness, a flicker of something undeniable. I turned slightly, eyes still fixed forward. "Did you want me to?" I asked. My voice sounded thin, unfamiliar. He didn't answer right away, but then he said, "You keep pretending that night was a mistake." And I didn't let him finish. I snapped, not loud, but sharp enough. "Don't," I said. My hands gripped the steering wheel like we were moving, even though we weren't, going anywhere. He apologized immediately, softened. "I'm sorry, I don't know how to act like nothing happened." I swallowed hard. "I do," I replied. "I've been doing it for years." The silence after that wasn't the same. It wasn't empty, it was full, heavy, like we'd cracked something open between us, and neither of us wanted to look too closely at what was inside. I should have started the engine again, called for help, asked him to get out of the car, but I didn't. I just sat there, watching the rain, feeling it all start again. I didn't